person here in our temporary space. More of you are out virtually. As Noel Coward said, mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Apparently, a few of us here at TPB come out in the midday sun too, which is why I'm dressed like this. It's bloody hot today. Thanks to the National Association of Counties for making this space available for us. Those who are participating virtually, in the event of any disruption to your audio-video connection, please email or text staff at the contact information in the email that Conti sent us last week. So the process for today's hybrid meeting, we'll start with a roll call of board members, confirm we have a quorum. After that, we'll accept comments from the public. Then during agenda items, I'll have the presenters complete their briefing, and then we'll turn to members for questions or comments. I'll call on members. And for action items that require us to vote, noting that we don't have any resolutions to adopt today, but after discussions, I'll call for a vote. Those who vote, excuse me, only vote nay or abstain. I'll assume that you say yes if you don't say nay or abstain. So I'll recognize members in the room and then ask staff to assist in identifying those who are online who wish to speak. Please use the raised hand icon, and staff will make a note and help me call on you. Let's get started. Lynn, can you call the roll, please?
Yep, great, thank you, no problem. So I'm going to state the name of your jurisdiction or agency. If you could then state your name, we'll capture your attendance. District Council Charles Allen. District Council Christina Henderson.
Here.
Thank you. District Council Matt Fruman.
Here.
Thank you. District Department of Transportation. I saw Mark Rawlings. Hi, Mark. District Office of Planning.
Present in hand.
Thank you. Moving on to Maryland, City of Bowie.
Present.
Thank you. Hi, Maddie. City,
Hi.
or sorry, Charles County. City of College Park.
Present.
Thank you. Frederick County.
Alternate is here, Deborah Carpenter.
Great, thank you. City of Frederick. City of Gaithersburg.
Neil Harris is here.
Thank you. City of Greenbelt.
Kristen Weaver is online.
Great, thank you. City of Laurel.
Armin Safaka here.
Thank you. Montgomery County Executive.
Corey Pitts is here.
Thanks, Corey. Montgomery County.
Marilyn Balcom.
Thank you. Prince George's County Executive. And Prince George's County.
Eric Olson, County Council.
Thank you. City of Rockville.
Monique Ashton, present.
Thank you. City of Tacoma Park. I see you, Amy. So Amy's here. Maryland House of Delegates. Maryland Senate. Maryland Department of Transportation. I see Jeff Anderson. Okay. Moving on to Virginia, City of Alexandria.
Caddick, present.
Thanks. Arlington County.
Dan's here.
Dan's present. City of Fairfax. Fairfax County.
Here.
Thank you, James. Anyone else from Fairfax County?
Jimmy Bierman.
Yeah, gotcha. Thanks.
Alive.
City of Falls Church.
Dave Snyder here.
Great, thank you. Loudoun County. City of Manassas.
Sonia Vázquez Luna, presente.
Thank you.
Ashley Hudson here.
Great, thank you. City of Manassas Park. Prince William County.
Here, Jefferson, present.
Great, thank you. Anyone else from Prince William County? I see
Megan
Megan
Land
on the
is
phone.
present.
Great. Thanks, Megan. Virginia House of Delegates.
Gary McGuire's here.
Great, thank you. Welcome. Virginia Senate. Senator Boysko called me. She's en route, just so you know. Virginia Department of Transportation.
Michelle Shropshire, alternate president.
Thank you.
Leo Panetta here.
Great, thanks, Leo. Moving on to WMATA. And then our ex officio members, Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. They are both at a training this week, so I was not expecting to see them. National Capital Planning Commission.
Kyle, present.
Thanks, Mike. Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. And National Park Service. Okay, that concludes roll call. We'll also be keeping an eye out for participants that joined virtually. And thank you. We have a forum.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Next up is approval of minutes. We've been provided with a written summary. I move that we adopt the minutes of the April 15th, 2026 meeting as provided. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any corrections or additions to the meeting minutes? Hearing none, we'll take the vote to approve the minutes. Are there any nays or abstentions?
Abstention, City of Bowie.
Okay, minutes are approved with one abstention. Thank you. We have, next up is the technical committee report. We have a written summary of the May 1st meeting. Dan, is there anything you'd like to highlight or expand for us?
Good afternoon. At our May 1st meeting, the technical committee covered 4 items you'll see today during the board meeting. First and second, we received briefings on the proposed recipients for the FY27 TLC and RRSP technical assistance programs. Without duplicating what you'll see in the board items, I will briefly say that jurisdictional staff love these programs. Thank you. They're unique in a couple of ways. First of all, as planning programs rather than construction grants, they help us get projects started, which is very unusual. Sometimes ideas can sit in limbo a long time, waiting even to be planned. So it's really helpful to have these programs available to us. Second, by offering technical assistance rather than grant money, these two programs let us move very quickly into actual planning work, and the 1-year timeline for completion keeps us moving forward really briskly. So thank you, TPB, for making these programs available to us. We really do appreciate them and use them every year. Moving on, the technical committee also received briefings on the performance measures and travel analysis tools that you'll see shortly this afternoon, as well as technical presentations on the Transportation Mutual Aid Operations Plan, which provides a framework for resource sharing across borders during big events. And finally, a presentation on the region's air quality standards for ozone, including development of a redesignation request and maintenance plan for the region. As everyone knows, I'm sure, tracking emissions related to transportation is one of TPB's core federal functions, and the region is now routinely meeting attainment goals for ozone. Thus, we are hoping to be redesignated as no longer in non-attainment. If you'll grant me apologies for the double negative there. So regardless, it's good news, and I'm sure we'll continue to receive updates on that request as it progresses. Unless there are questions, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Dan. Does anyone have questions for Dan on that technical committee report? All right, hearing none, thank you. Next up, we have 2 reports. We have the Community Advisory Committee report and the Access for All Advisory Committee report. Tim Davis, can you start us off?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair Harris, members of the board and TPB staff. It's my pleasure to share with you the CAC's monthly report. The CAC met virtually on May 14th. Our agenda included Act Locally Round Robin, received an update on the changes to the TPB congestion management process, and discussed our plans for the rest of the year. Our Act Locally Round Robin has become a regular part of our meetings. CAC members are actively involved in various transportation issues, both locally and nationally. I encourage you to pay close attention to our Act Locally segments in our meeting summary. I gave the group an overview of my upcoming visit to our Bike to Work Day in Frederick. And for the board's benefit, this marks my 26th year and my first as a CAC representative. Here are some interesting statistics. I spoke with 26 people during my time there that morning, 15 about Bike to Work Day, and I handed out some great maps that was provided by TPB staff. I talked with 5 people about what the MPO is, 4 people about a local hot topic called data centers, and 2 specifically about what the CAC is and how people can become members. We also had an informative discussion about TPB's changes to the congestion management process. We were really excited about the new interactive online story map that will explain the cause of congestion and how to manage it and get in a clear and understandable way. We look forward to learning more about the platform as it launches next month. Looking ahead, there are several important topics for the rest of the year, including the TPB's policy framework and performance metrics, update on the bike ped plan, ongoing DMV information, and a presentation from one of our local members about land use and economics, just to name a few. I invite TPB members to read the CAC report for more details on our discussions. This wraps up my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tim. Does anyone have questions on the CAC report? All right, hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Leo Panetta, you have a report for us from the Access for All Committee?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Harris. It's my pleasure to deliver the AFA's quarterly report. The AFA met virtually on May 4th. The AFA received a report from the WMATA Accessibility Advisory Committee, an update on the status of DMV Moves initiatives, and the bicycle and pedestrian plan. We also discussed the TP Reach a Ride program and learned more about one of member programs, Data Mobility Partners. The status of the Reach a Ride program is a topic that many committee members have commented on. Dan Sheehan, Transportation Operations Program Director, recapped the feedback that has been received to date on the possible future use of this FTA-funded program. The program served as a clearinghouse for finding transportation for older adults and people with disabilities. It was basically a referral call center. Staff are pursuing options for retooling this program. So far, feedback indicates that there's a preference for making the retooling this program. So far, feedback indicates that there's a preference for making the offering more helpful to the mobility managers in the area, as opposed to providing direct services to clients needing assistance. We were pleased to hear a presentation from member Terry Lamb with Data Mobility Partners, formerly the Dulles Area Transportation Association. Ms. Lamb provided information on their 4 main programs, including Employer Solutions, Veterans Connect and Neighbors Connect, Transit Trex, and Venture Out. She provided statistics on the impact the programs have had on their service areas, which all lead to helping Northern Virginians get access to transportation and stay connected to services, opportunities, and the community. We invite TPB members to read the AFA report for more details about our discussions, and that concludes the AFA report. I'm happy to take questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Leo? No? Okay, thanks, Leo. Appreciate the report. Next up is the steering committee report. Conti, can you please review that for us?
Okay, sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. You have a copy of my memo, both of the steering committee actions and other updates. It's a little bit lengthy this month. I'll try to be brief as I review the contents of the memo. Before I do that, I just want to note for the record that there were no public comments received by the TPB this month, either online or nobody signed up to provide their comments today in person. So starting with the TPB steering committee, the committee met on May 1st, and it took a number of actions. To begin with, it reviewed and approved a revision to the TPB's budget and work program for the upcoming fiscal year. The revision reflected the updated FTA funding amounts from the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation and from the District Department of Transportation. The change to the budget was a net increase in funding by about $308,000. And that additional fund would support 2 new activities. One of them is ensuring that the documents that the TPB posts for public on its website are fully ADA compliant. There has been some notification that some aspects of documents that are posted online need to have some functionality for it to be fully ADA compliant. So it will help us do an inventory and address that. And the second activity that additional funding will provide is allow the TPB to update its travel demand forecasting model with the post-COVID data. So happy to expedite that particular work from next fiscal year to this fiscal year. The steering committee approved revisions to the functional classification of some roadways in Maryland, specifically in Charles, Frederick, Montgomery, and Prince George's counties, and in the cities of Gaithersburg and Greenbelt. The Maryland State Highway Administration had been working collaboratively with these jurisdictions for the past year, and they completed the task, and the TPB approval is required for Maryland to submit it to the Federal Highway for their approval. Next, the steering committee approved 3 amendments to its FY 2026 through FY 2029 TIP. The first amendment was in Maryland, which added about $30 million for the construction phase of the I-95, 495, and Maryland 4 bridge replacement project. Details are on pages 38 through 47 of my memo. The second TIP amendment was in Northern Virginia. That amendment adds about $2 million in state funding for installing CCTV cameras along I-95 as part of the congestion improvement program. And the third and last amendment was again in Northern Virginia at Fairfax County's request to add about $19 million in CMAQ and regional STP funds along with the state matching funds for the US 1 BRT project. And the amendment also changed the years in which about $18 million in congestion reduction, carbon reduction program funds that would be used for this project. It moved the years from 2024 to 2027. The last action that the steering committee took, which I would like to particularly note and trust that the full board would today concur with this staff recommendation. And that action was a recommendation by staff to allow the TPB to apply for federal Safe Streets for All grant funds for a technology deployment demonstration project. This proposed project will be in partnership with a private sector consortium. The consortium is called Partners for AV Education, or PAVE for short. And this consortium is led by the multinational firm WSP. And the other partner is the District Department of Transportation. It's a very interesting project proposal. The technology that is proposed to be deployed for demonstration is one that is aimed at increasing the safety of our bicyclists on our roadways. The technology involves the onboard navigational systems in automobiles being able to detect and alert the driver of bicyclists that are ahead in front of the vehicles. The PAVE consortium will be the technical lead. The District Department of Transportation will provide a corridor for deployment and demonstration and data gathering and reporting. The grant application is due next Tuesday. We briefed the steering committee. The steering committee approved staff to continue its work and pull the application together. We are getting to the close of having the application package completed, just a few things that we are working on. And one of the things that we are working on, which we are very hopeful will be completed, is getting letters of collaboration from our 2 partners from the district and WSP, which would clearly identify the roles and responsibilities for the project. We hope that this application would be successful and we would be able to truly test and demonstrate the technology. And to the extent that it is ready for deployment, it will be another tool to improve the safety outcomes on our regional roadways, particularly of the most vulnerable, the non-motorized vehicle user. Moving to the letters sent and received part of my memo. On page 65 is a copy of our letter of support from the TPB for a joint City of Manassas Park and Prince William County application for Safe Streets for All grant to advance the implementation of the county's comprehensive traffic safety action plan and the city's adopted Vision Zero action plan. We certainly hope that that grant application is also considered favorably. Reviewing the announcement and updates section, members will hopefully not mind a little bit of trumpeting our own work nature of my next report. But I want to share this as a feedback to the board for its forward-leaning posture it has taken over the past 3-4 years on several of its work activities. And as those products and those work activities completed, it is not surprising that it has garnered the attention of professionals across the country. First, the TPB's Visualize 2050, the approach that the board took to completely redoing the entire long-range plan, which had been in place for a little over 35 years, that approach and developing it and the process was presented at VDOT's Land Use Forum on May 14th. And we will also be presenting that at the National Association of Regional Councils annual conference in Tulsa, Oklahoma on June 7th through 10th. And finally, at the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations and their annual conference in Sacramento, California in September. The second product that we are pleased to note is on April 24th, staff presented an overview of the Regional Transportation Resilience Program to other regional planners at the American Planning Association's Regional Futures Forum as part of the National Planning Conference in Detroit, Michigan. A third product that staff presented on May 14th was on the Inland Flooding Study Project at the National Adaptation Forum in Pittsburgh. And that's a 3-day biennial conference where adaptation professionals from across the country and from different sectors gather to exchange their work activities and also some emerging trends. Finally, the fourth item is that we are very pleased to inform that the TPB's next generation travel demand forecasting model that we call the Generation 3 travel demand forecasting model was officially released after a period of pilot beta testing. And the TPB and its staff developed this cutting edge modeling technology after 6 years of a strategic plan implementation. This is a more advanced and an activity-based travel demand model that is now available at no cost to all of our member agencies, to the professional organizations, consultants, and to the general public. It's this tool that the TPB spent quite a bit of resources is now available at no cost for people to use. With this release, TPB will now be offering 2 types of travel demand forecasting model. One is the historical trip-based travel demand model, which will continue to be available, and the other one is the activity-based model. All of the transportation agencies in our region typically use the TPB model either entirely as is, or they use it as a base to make some modifications for any project studies that they might be conducting, for any corridor studies that they might be conducting, or for any scenario analysis they'll be conducting. So that is the widespread use of TPB's model. And so we are pleased that we now have a second, more advanced model to offer. Then moving on to other announcements, the TPB's Bike to Work Day event was on this past Friday, and it was successful. It met its goal. It had a goal of 12,750 participants. We exceeded that goal just a little bit. But again, being candid, we are building back to where the program's participation was pre-COVID. We were around 18,000. We have been gradually building back after a couple years of absolutely not holding the event. But certainly we were pleased to note that we met the goal. Also, you all might have received an email both with hold the date and please register email to attend COG's last in the series on data centers. This is being hosted by COG members. Will remember that we had briefed you on it. The TPB staff has been partnering with COG in both in-kind support as well as financially to hold this forum. The last forum will be focused on land use and the economic impacts of data centers. And the forum will be on May 28th in the city of Alexandria. We will send another reminder in case you haven't registered. It'll be next Tuesday. 26. COG also issues annually a Climate and Energy Leadership Award in 4 different categories. And one is in government agencies, local governments and state governments. Non-governmental organizations is another category. For-profit businesses is another category. And then educational institutions. So applications are currently being accepted. I certainly encourage all of you and your member organizations to consider applying. The applications will be accepted through June 30th, and the details are on page 70 of my memo. At the conclusion of my report, I would like to share a very brief video that we have started sharing on social media, and this is to get the word out on the regional travel survey. It's a very important survey that the TPB does. This is what informs our travel demand modeling. This is what informs our cooperative forecasting, a lot of work activities that we do mobility monitoring. TPB used to do this once every 10 years. It is a massive undertaking. It takes us, we spend more than $2 million and a couple of years working on it. But we also recognized that waiting 10 years, travel patterns, travel behavior changes more frequently, has been changing more frequently. So now, last year, we made a informed decision to pick up the frequency of these surveys, and we are hoping to now do it in 2 5-year terms, and this is the first round. So we are trying to get the word out. So I'll leave the rest to the video. Thank you.
Your travel matters, whether you take transit, drive, bike, or walk. The Transportation Planning Board is mailing a survey to selected households to understand how you travel. It's quick, confidential, and you'll earn $5 to $10 per person. If you get this postcard, please complete the survey. Help plan our region's transportation future together.
That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Did we need to do a motion regarding the grant application?
No, typically, because the steering committee approved the resolution, we will defer to the TPB to concur. But this is the time if members have questions on it, I'll be happy to answer
All right,
questions.
thanks. Are there any questions on Conti's report? Nothing online either? Okay, well, thanks. So, hopefully that project will be approved by the federal government, the USDOT. It's a really interesting technology that I'm looking forward to seeing if it can get tested out and save some lives. Anyway, you may have noticed this year, staff is trying to adopt a theme for each monthly meeting of the TPB and bring us some briefings that'll put the topics on our radars. I've commented in the past on roadway congestion. Even though I'm no longer commuting from Gaithersburg to Herndon, it's still kind of a mess out there often. And I hear that a lot from my constituents when I talk about transportation. They'll want to know what we're going to do to make it easier to get there from here. So we're getting a comprehensive overview of the TPB's work on congestion relief today. So I know you're all waiting with bated breath for that. Next on the agenda, though, is approval of the technical assistance recipients. We will receive the recommendations from the selection committee and are being asked to act on it. Our colleague on the board, Michael Weil from the National Capital Planning Commission, headed the selection committee, and he's here. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Weil. I work as a planner for the National Capital Planning Commission, and I'm honored again to serve as the chair of this year's Transportation Land Connections Selection Panel. Again, this is my second year chairing that group. I will introduce Janie in a couple of minutes, but first I wanted to provide a few remarks as a little context for this important TLC program. Since 2007, TLC has funded more than 190 projects throughout the region in order to promote vibrant communities, active transportation, and safer streets. And this year, we really saw a very diverse group of projects in support of these objectives. There were a number of creative proposals in this year's batch, such as the countywide parking demand study in Prince William County, and the City of Rockville's proposal to install benches at every bus stop within their city jurisdiction. Over the years, we've seen a lot of these smaller projects, and though their budgets are relatively modest and they're short term, they are nevertheless very important as seeding projects to help grow additional transit, pedestrian, and bicycle infrastructure within the region. So over the past almost 20 years at this point, the COG staff has done a great job with creating this program, supporting the application process, and TPB staff has recently ramped up efforts to share information about past projects, including webinars and a new database where you can download reports from all of the TLC projects. And I encourage you to check that out when you get a chance. So with that, I will now turn the presentation over to Janie, and Janie will go through this year's TLC project recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and big thank you to you for giving your time and expertise again this year to the program. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Janie Nam. I'm a transportation planner on staff, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Jamie Buffkin. And we're here to present the 6 project recommendations for the FY 2027 cycle of the TLC program. And we're standing in for our colleague, Vicki Cujulo, TPB's grants manager, who is currently on leave. The Transportation Land Use Connections Program started in 2007 with the goal of promoting more walkable and vibrant communities. And over time, it has funded nearly 200 projects for over $9 million. All of these projects have covered a wide range of planning issues, including trail planning, corridor studies, and transit-oriented development analyses. The program has a simple model. Every year, we select a handful of local projects and we hire consultants to do them. The projects have a quick turnaround. They're typically between 6 to 8 months long, and they're small. This year's projects were each funded for a maximum of $100,000. This year, the application process kicked off on January 2nd when the TPB issued a call for projects. Applicants were able to submit abstracts, which provided them with the opportunity to receive feedback and recommendations on how to develop a stronger application. And the deadline for application submissions was in late February. We received a total of 10 applications, 7 from Virginia, 3 from Maryland, none from DC, for a total of $880,000 in funding requests. This year, our selection panel was very professionally diverse, composed of members and staffers from the Institute for Transportation Engineers, the National Capital Planning Commission, and the Transportation Research Board. The selection panel submitted their individual evaluations before meeting on April 16th. And at the meeting, based on discussion of the regional and local merits of the applications, they reached a consensus on the projects to recommend to the TPB for approval. And just to give a quick overview of these projects before I hand things over to Jamie, our total funding for this year was $480,000 distributed among 6 applications or 6 projects. The selections reflect geographic diversity. They are a mix of planning and engineering projects. They all support transportation for low-income areas, and 4 out of the 6 are in transit access focus areas or TAFAs. These are the 6 recommended projects. And I'll hand things over to Jamie at this point where she'll be providing more details about each one.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jamie Buskin, a planner here, and I'm going to give you some details on these projects. So first, we have Charles County requesting technical assistance to develop a toolkit of strategies and concepts to serve as a guidebook for retrofitting identified neighborhoods into low-speed, pedestrian-friendly streets, referred to as neighborhood greenways. This project builds upon the Connect Waldorf study and their neighborhood traffic calming program, which developed a citywide vision for an interconnected bicycle and pedestrian network. The project will identify opportunities and challenges for each of these 7 neighborhoods in implementing recommended traffic calming solutions, develop conceptual designs, and create a scalable toolkit that other jurisdictions can then use for improving bicycle and pedestrian amenities in conventional low-density communities. Moving on to Montgomery County, funds are being requested to develop an engineered design from concept through preliminary engineering for pedestrian and safety accessibility improvements along Domer Avenue, from Flower Avenue to east of Garland Avenue. These improvements will focus on intersection traffic calming safety measures, addressing sidewalk gaps, and improving ADA accessibility. This project builds upon recommendations from the county's Purple Line Station Access Study to support safe access to the future Long Branch Purple Station near a busy commercial corridor. Have you ever found yourself waiting for a bus to come but nowhere to sit? Well, Rockville is trying to fix that by requesting funding to study a feasibility study for adding seating at every bus stop within their city's limits. Currently, 156 of the 451 bus stops have a bench. The study will evaluate the challenges related to providing seating for all of these stops, such as any right-of-way availability challenges, slope challenges, accessibility requirements, and maintenance concerns that might come up later down the road. The needed efforts and funds to overcome these challenges will be identified and better understood by other jurisdictions as well. Moving over to Virginia, the city of Alexandria is requesting funding to evaluate their bicycle network and identify gaps between facilities and to identify existing facilities that just don't align with the existing guidance for intersection treatments. This study builds upon the 2021 Alexandria Mobility Plan strategy to build out a connected bicycle network of both on and off-street facilities. The consultant will evaluate the existing and planned network, identify and categorize network gaps, and assess connectivity to key destinations, and recommend prioritized improvements, including concept level plans. Next, in Arlington County, we have a request to fund a multimodal transportation alternatives analysis along the 12 intersection segment of North Carlin Spring Road from Arlington Boulevard to North Wakefield Street. Building upon the county's master transportation plan, this study will evaluate existing conditions based on observational data, county collected traffic data, and county collected community input. A roadway diet analysis will be conducted to develop multiple conceptual alternatives of a reimagined corridor that reconfigures the existing 4-lane automobile-oriented street into one that's better suited for the transit riders and bikes and pedestrians, and especially those trail users in that area. And then last, we have Prince William County requesting funding to conduct a parking demand study to establish a locally calibrated foundation for modernizing residential parking policy, with emphasis on fast-growing neighborhoods and activity centers. The consultant will conduct a literature review of peer suburban jurisdictions that have implemented parking strategies, evaluate utilization patterns, geographic variations, identify opportunities for reform, and assess impacts on travel behavior and system performance. With the zoning ordinance update anticipated in 2026, later this year, the study is timely and necessary to ensure that future regulations support mobility, land use, and sustainability objectives. All right, I will hand it back over to Janie.
Thanks, Jamie. These are the 6 recommended projects that we are requesting your approval on this afternoon. We'd also like to thank all of the volunteers who served on the selection panel, and also to John Swanson for his support and guidance throughout this program cycle. That concludes our report, and we're happy to take any questions.
All right. Do we have any questions or comments for staff on the recommendations? Crickets. All right. So for the vote on the FY 2027 TLC technical assistance recipients, are there any nays or abstentions?
I don't see any on.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Janie and Jamie, you're up again for the regional roadway safety programs projects.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here again with Jamie Buffkin, and we're really pleased to share with you today the recommendations for this year's Regional Roadway Safety Program cycle for FY 2027. This is the 7th set of projects awarded under this program. Just like before, I'm going to begin by providing a brief overview of the program and the selection process, and then Jamie's going to provide a brief description of the individual projects. Modeled after the TLC program, the Regional Roadway Safety Program was established in 2020 to support TPB member jurisdictions in developing and implementing projects that improve safety outcomes across the region. And since it started just 6 years ago, the program has funded 32 projects totaling $2 million. These projects have spanned a variety of topics and disciplines beyond planning and engineering, such as complete streets, local road safety plans, and safe routes to school projects, to name a few. For this latest RSP cycle, staff solicited applications from member jurisdictions beginning in January 2nd and ending at the end of February. We received a total of 11 applications, 4 from Maryland, 7 from Virginia, none from the district, for a total funding request of $900,000. Following the application period, a selection panel consisting of safety officials from each of the state DOTs and TPB staff individually scored the applications based on program priorities and their professional expertise. And then the panelists convened on April 23rd to discuss their evaluations and come to a consensus as to which projects to recommend for funding. The panel strove to allocate program funds equitably between Maryland and Virginia, as well as to have geographic diversity within each state while also addressing regional priorities. This table shows the projects identified by the selection panel for funding, as well as their funding recommendations. The total program funding this year was $500,000, thanks to contributions from each of the state DOTs, for which we're very grateful for. And I'll hand things over to Jamie to provide additional details about the recommended projects.
Right, so first we have the City of Alexandria requesting assistance to assess the conditions for safety improvements along the bustling corridor of Mount Vernon Avenue between Glendale Avenue and Leadbeater Street. The study will give the city a list of prioritized safety recommendations, conceptual designs for safety countermeasures, evaluations of potential slow zones, and community engagement support. The city will then be equipped to implement near-term tactical improvements and pursue funding for permanent infrastructure upgrades. Moving over to the City of Fairfax, technical assistance is being requested to conduct a roadway safety audit on the Pickett Road corridor in response to over 200 crashes occurring on the 1.6-mile corridor in the past 5 years. From the audit, the city will gain a prioritized list of short and long-term strategies to address critical safety issues, which will then be used to eventually pursue implementation fundings for infrastructure improvements, educational campaigns, and any other possible countermeasures. We then have Prince William County responding to a long history of documented traffic safety concerns in the neighborhood of Maplewood, Yorkshire Acres. Excessive speeding, cut through traffic, and aggressive driver behavior is prompting the county to request assistance to conduct a traffic study to evaluate traffic operations, speeding patterns, those cut through volumes, and multimodal conditions, and internal street network access. Potential infrastructure and policy strategies will be recommended, along with a phased implementation framework that will help the county pursue various funding opportunities. Then in Maryland, Montgomery County wants to take a look at how pedestrian hybrid beacons are being used, based on a sample of 18 beacons located in Arlington County, Montgomery County, and the city of Alexandria. The study will determine driver yield rates, pedestrian activation rates, how device placement and phasing may affect use and compliance. The study will also conduct a literature review on the latest guidance on PHBs and a compilation of the assessed jurisdictions PHB standards, design guidance, and the decision-making that led to the installations at those observation sites. From this, the county and the region as a whole will gain an understanding of whether PHB adherence aligns with expected driver yield and pedestrian activation rates, where local PHB placements have a higher or lower adherence, and what the best practices are for the region in using PHBs by road and land use context. Next, in the city of Tacoma Park, we have a request for assistance to conduct a traffic analysis in the community between New Hampshire Avenue and University Boulevard. From the study, the city will gain an understanding of traffic volume, speed patterns, pedestrian safety concerns, enforcement effectiveness, and infrastructure needs. Key problem areas will be identified, cut-through traffic patterns will be evaluated, and short-term and long-term recommendations will be developed for implementation to improve traffic safety and mobility. Lastly, also in Tacoma Park, funds are being requested to reevaluate 2 traffic circles in the New Hampshire Gardens neighborhood. This project builds upon a recent study that identified safety concerns with these traffic circles. These problems were aggressive driving, speeding, high volume cut through traffic, and even problems with drivers entering the circle in the wrong direction. So rather than simply removing these circles and reverting to a 4-way stop, the city wants to explore other effective and innovation alternatives. Understanding the problems with these particular traffic circles can then inform other jurisdictions as well and reflect on their decisions in traffic circles and those designs. The project will result in preliminary designs that will then position the city for presentation to council. Thank you, and I'll hand it back over to Janie.
Thanks, Jamie. Those are the projects that TPB staff and the selection panel recommend for funding in the FY 2027 cycle of the Regional Roadway Safety Program. Upon approval, staff will coordinate with the jurisdictions to finalize project scopes of work and begin the consultant selection process, which we anticipate will take place in June and July. And this will be followed by project kickoffs in early fall. That concludes our report. We'd like to again thank the safety officials who volunteered their time to serve on our selection panel, and also to John Swanson for his support and guidance. And with that, we're happy to take any questions.
All right, did I hear that the Pickett Road section has had 260 crashes in 5 years? That's like a crash a week. If that's true, they're not asking for enough money.
This is over 200, so.
Yeah, that's incredible. Okay, are there any other questions aside from my bafflement?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank staff for continuing this important safety program going. This was started a few years ago, and I commend staff for keeping it going. The second question I have is that in every case, the projects talked about lessons which are usable across the region. do we have an embedded way by which lessons learned from these studies are in fact collated and then provided throughout the region? And I know the answer, as is usual with my questions for Conti, is yes. So I am interested, though, in making sure that the learning from each of these projects, in fact, is shared effectively. Conti, do you have anything to say there?
Just, I agree. I was going to say yes, but I was going to clarify by saying it's an excellent idea. We have not produced one yet. We are approaching the fifth. We've just passed the fifth one, so we'll definitely pull that together. We have started doing that with the TLC, but that program has been going on for about 20 years. This would be another good one. Thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, thanks very much. We continue each and every day, we continue to see traffic fatalities and serious injuries across the region. And I know we're all committed to doing what we can about that. So these programs, these little pilot programs actually can produce a lot of very effective information that's usable. So thanks again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Are there any other questions or comments? Monique Ashton?
Hi, how are you? Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you all for this important work. On behalf of City of Rockville, I also thank you. I really was excited to see the kinds of projects that are coming forward. So I would just echo the comments of that were made by my colleague to say that there's so much learning. I can tell you that one of the projects we did, we were removed from the high injury network. So they really do make a difference. And just want to thank the entire TPB and staff for moving this forward.
All right, thanks, Mayor Ashton. Any other hands? Okay, so now we need to vote to approve the FY 2027 Regional Roadway Safety Program projects. Are there any nays or abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thank you. So now we move on to the informational items themed around congestion monitoring and management. First, Tim Kanan on staff will brief the board on methods and tools used by TPB staff to analyze and understand regional travel and congestion. Tim?
I'm over here. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, it's great to be here with you. Chair Harris, a few meetings ago, you expressed interest in having us come to you to talk to you, this board, about what are some of the tools that we use to better understand travel and congestion to inform you, our members, as you respond to many inquiries, from your own constituents. So we're going to spend the next couple items giving you a flavor of that. We could probably spend a day-long program on that. So, and out of respect for your time, we're not going to do that, and we're going to try to limit our time here, but give you hopefully what is a good overview on some of the tools and the methodologies that we use to better understand travel and congestion in the region. I do want to start a little bit with some context remarks about how travel and congestion occurs within this region, talking about the region itself, looking at it through a long-range lens. The TPB is a long-range transportation planning process that we have here for the metropolitan area. Part of that is we look at data over the long term. The TPB has been around since the 1960s, COG even before that. And we have been tracking growth and forecasting growth in partnership with all of our local government members here through the Council of Governors Planning Directors Technical Advisory Committee, and collecting data to better understand the growing nature of the region. We're the 9th largest metropolitan area in the country. We have grown and will continue to grow over the long term. We do experience short-term variations to that growth. We have interruptions caused from the business cycle, disruptions such as recession. We do have pandemic to contend with from time to time that has great disruptions to our economy here. But overall, when you look at the long-term trajectory of this region, this is a region that has grown, and we are expecting it to continue to grow. It's despite these short-term variations, we expect that there will be increased jobs in the region. Our around 10.1 cooperative forecasts are calling for future growth of population, households, and jobs in the region. As the jobs continue to grow in the region, this will become an attractive place for people, for the workers to fill those jobs. And as the jobs and the workers come to this region, that's going to generate a lot more trips in this region, which of course will generate a lot more demand on the transportation infrastructure and transportation services that our region provides. So a natural outcome of that, to be expected as the region continues to grow, is congestion. And a certain amount of congestion is to be expected. And honestly, for a growing region, it's an indication that it is a healthy region. But it also does reach a point where it becomes undermining to that growth and the prosperity of a region. So it's certainly something to be managing and actively monitoring. For more than 60 years, TPB has cultivated a variety of methods and tools to help us better understand travel and congestion in the region. And there has not been one single source of information that we rely upon to help us understand and address congestion in the region. We rely on numerous data sources and programs to provide us with the understanding we need to communicate to you, our region's transportation decision makers. So I'm going to give you a quick overview on some of the tools that we have used and that are evolving over time that we tend to use. The first and foremost is part of our legacy. We've been around as an MPO since the 1960s, and we have a long-standing legacy of conducting technically rigorous travel surveys that yield statistically significant findings on regional travel and congestion. And we are quite proud of that legacy, and we use that information to advise you on what the implications of the growth is going to be in the region and what some of the considerations that have to be taken into account as we update our long-range transportation plans. Some of these surveys, from that primary data research that we collect, one of the primary sources are surveys. We mentioned the regional travel survey. We already had a video on that, and so we're going to plug that survey every opportunity we have. So right now I'm going to say, if you have received a postcard in your household, please do participate in it if you can. If you know of constituents within your communities that have received postcards and have questions about it and contact you, we do encourage you to encourage them to participate. That is vital information that we get. We also have the State of the Commute Survey. We have the Washington-Baltimore Regional Air Passenger Survey. We look at transit ridership surveys and travel monitoring studies. These are all primary data collection tools that we use to collect data in the field to help us understand travel and congestion. And we have taken this data over the years and we analyze it, and typically in the past, we have taken this data and written quite lengthy and comprehensive reports and use those reports to advise you. As you'll see, as I talk a little bit more here as part of my briefing, some of those tools in which we report that data have also evolved as well. But as I mentioned, the primary data collection survey that we have is the Regional Travel Survey. It provides the broadest understanding of the characteristics of travel in the region. We've been conducting it since 1968, and that allows us to compare the changing of growth, the changes of the kind of growth we're observing, the takers of trips in the region, and how the region is evolving overall over time. So it's a rich data source, and it provides us the depth of information on both regional travel and those using the system. We use it to estimate, calibrate, and validate our regional travel demand model. And that's vital because the more we can put confidence into that travel demand model, the better we feel about our forecast for future travel, which of course gives us more comfort in understanding what is the nature of future congestion in the region as well. The State of the Commute Survey is our primary triennial survey that measures commute travel in the region, allowing us to better understand the who's, the what's, the how's, the when's, the why of commute travel in the region. It's a deeper dive into one particular type of travel, and that is work-based travel. That's a little bit different from the Regional Travel Survey, which looks at all trips taken in the region. And what's important about the State of the Commute Survey is because it takes a deep dive into commute travel, it allows, even though the percentage of total trips taken in the region that are commute trips are not the biggest percentage, the way and the time that commute travel occurs contributes to peak period congestion, which is the primary cause of recurring congestion in the region, which we'll learn a little bit more in the next item when Ian talks to us about the congestion management process. So the State of the Commute Survey is one of the vital tools that we use to better understand congestion. We came to you several months ago. My colleague Dan Sheehan presented that. The findings of that, and that's one of the many surveys that we use to better understand congestion. Also recently, I think it was 2 meetings ago, we had a briefing here at TPB on the Metropolitan Area Transportation Operations Coordination, affectionately known as MATOC. And MATOC it's conducted in the context of addressing congestion. MATOC is a key regional program resource that provides timely situational awareness of regional transportation operations and incidents that disrupt those operations. I underscore the word incidents because incidents is a symptom of non-recurring congestion. And the best way to, it's very difficult to plan for non-recurring congestion. If we were able to plan for it and predict it, then we'd probably call it recurring congestion, but we can't. So it's non-recurring congestion. So the best we can do is understand it, understand when it happens, understand the nature of it, evolve our situational awareness so all of those who have to respond to incidents can better have that information to more effectively and efficiently respond to incidents, and really promote that situational awareness across the region to do that. So although it's a program of information, it's not really a data-driven program as far as us collecting data, but it's more of a data to inform situational awareness on incidents that might occur in the region. Big data. New technologies have allowed us to obtain timely information from devices like mobile phones, connected vehicles, travel monitoring sensors, and other location-based sources. This is referred to as big data, which lets us better understand where travel is occurring, as well as the shifts in travel behavior. Think about how many of us may use navigation aids like Waze or Google or Apple Maps to get around in the region. Think about a time when you were going somewhere and you were alerted to an incident downstream and you had to then call an audible and change your route. That's already showing the situational awareness that big data can provide and help us respond to situations and help optimize and make the regional system a little bit more efficient. But these same types of data that we do collect, they're enormous data sets. And looking at a single record from the data set really doesn't tell you that much. Looking at a small subset doesn't really tell you that much. It's not until you really dive deeply into the millions of records of these types of data that we get allows us planners and analysts to examine trends and gain more timely insights. What's valuable about big data is we can get it on a more timely basis. We unlike our regional travel survey, which we collect had been once every 10 years. Now, thanks to Ken Joe, who managed that program, we've moved that cadence up to about half that time, to every 5 years. And it's still a very robust undertaking that precludes us from doing it every year. It's not nimble enough to do that. Big data, on the other hand, does provide us with more frequent data. However, the depth of the data isn't quite as rich as what we might get from a survey. So it really does have some great applicability, but it has a little bit of limitations as well in terms of the scope that we can use big data. So I wanted just to provide that backdrop for you a little bit and let you know that we do have some enhanced data visualization tools that have been evolving over time. I believe several months ago, if not last year, I presented on the TPB resources and applications page that was developed by my colleagues Charlene, Jess, and Renee, who developed this resource to better consolidate all of our visualization tools that inform regional transportation decision-making, congestion awareness, and awareness of other types of data in a single portal, rather than have to go through a single program-specific content area within our website to get to that. These enhanced tools that we host on the Trap allow us to do a better job conveying the key insights from our analysis and do a better job to kind of tell that story of regional travel and the nature of travel and congestion in the region. So I wanted to provide kind of a quick overview on the evolution of the tools that we use to understand it, as well as the tools that we use to convey that information to you, our decision makers. So I'm going to move on to part 2 of my item here. And that is I'm going to share my screen and walk through a brief demonstration of some of these tools that we have. So I'm going to try to do a little multitasking here and quickly walk through. I'm not going to dive into the nature of the data or what the message is from the data, but really about the evolution of these tools and how we can use these tools to do this work. And all these tools, if are not already available on our trap page on the website, they're nearing the final stages of development and will be soon. Some of them will be contained within our congestion management program products that Ian's going to be going over in the next item as well. This first one is just the overall homepage for the trap. As I said, it has these different panels you can just navigate, and depending on the type of content area you want to go into, you can select one of these panels and go in and find underlying that a variety and assortment of different tools and resources that we've developed. I'm going to go over a few of them here just on separate tabs of the website. One of the primary indicators of travel in the region is regional vehicle miles of travel in the region, or VMT. We do have many different geographic distinctions in the region. You hear us referring to the TPB planning area, which is the area that is that comprises all of our member jurisdictional bodies. We also have the TPB modeled area. We collect data at those areas. We also collect data at the metropolitan statistical area, the urbanized area, different types of ways you can slice and dice geography. For simplicity purposes in this tool, we've taken vehicle miles of travel, the trend, the long-term trend between 2005 and 2024, which is the latest set available of totally processed vehicle miles of travel data. And we present that at both the TPB modeled region as well as the TPB planning area. And you can mouse over some of these and better see the trends, and you can drill down a little bit, looking at how it corresponds from the modeled area to the planning area. So this is a helpful tool if you want to get a quick snapshot of VMT. That's a common data request that we do receive, our VMT trends in the region. We are always happy to give the Excel spreadsheet to the analysts who want to take those numbers and crunch them within their own tools. But sometimes the requester of the information just wants to better understand what the trend is, and we can point them to an interactive graphic like this. So having the TPB meeting here at the away game site, we're the away team this week. As we not meeting, our internet connection is a little bit slow. There's a little bit of lag here, so bear with us on that. My colleague Renee Ritchie developed a tool using Power BI. That is a fairly new tool that is offered through Microsoft, and it takes data and it connects two data sets, and you can develop these palettes of visualizations through it. And as the data underlying it become refreshed, the visualizations automatically also become refreshed as well. And looking at and connecting to the WMATA's ridership data portal, we can develop visualizations, and it's interactive, and you can look at ridership trends over time. You can point to a specific point in time for the overall ridership by year trends. You can drill that down to average weekday ridership, and you can also look at this by year. You can right now down here on the bottom panel is showing trends for 2012. In 2020, during the pandemic, we see a big drop off in ridership that would be expected. And then in the later years since the pandemic, you see a great recovery, and the scale does change a little bit. Another dashboard that we have developed as part of our PBPP process is looking at performance of the highway asset performance measures, looking at bridge and pavement conditions. We have to collect this data, make it available. It does provide insight into bridge conditions throughout the entire region, and we can see where areas in the region that have bridges that upon their inspection were rated to be in good condition or fair or in poor. It helps our members prioritize their investments for the future to help avoid areas in the future that might become problems with congestion, as we do see. We do have infrastructure failures in the region. Sometimes they're caused by error, sometimes it's caused by maintenance issues. And being able to keep ahead of the maintenance backlog by understanding what that backlog is allows us to invest in those resources, those transportation facilities, to prevent congestion from occurring in those places as part of the overall health of the transportation infrastructure we have in the region. Another dashboard my colleague Fabio Rahman has developed as part of our CMP process is looking at reliability metrics in the system. And this is really an evolution of a tool that used to be contained in our CMP technical report. And I don't want to steal Ian's thunder. He's going to get into that into the next report, but we've enhanced that product quite a lot. And we used to have a series of PDFs that you could look at different types of indicator, where within the region geographically. We made this completely interactive. So you can now select a year that you might be interested in looking at. Let's pick 2019, just before the pandemic. We want to look at AM weekday. And let's pick a road. Let's look at I-270 in Maryland. And we can look at what some of the, where's my, the metric? Let's look at travel time index, which is a relationship of the travel time that actually occurs compared to what you were, compared to free flow conditions. And we can see during the AM weekdays, on that facility, where those areas where the travel time index indicated congestion. You can also change the time period for that, so we can go a year later into 2020, and we see a lot of that red has become green because travel in the region did decrease quite significantly during the pandemic. And then coming out of the pandemic to today, or to last year, when we have the data available, we see that congestion has returned to this facility. But you can look at all of these region-wide. This is 2025 AM weekday. You can go to looking at through a regional filter for 2020. A lot of the reds become green. So that is what we understand is the nature of travel. This really helps us to drill down and see where those, not only through a regional lens, but a locational specific lens as well to do that. So this is an exciting product. And we're going to be developing more of these and make them available to you and to your staffs and to your residents over time. How am I doing on time? My colleague Zhou Yang also developed another dashboard using a different set of tools, looking at origin and destinations in the region, looking at it through the lens of jurisdiction to jurisdictional origin to destination pairs. This is using one of those big data sources that I mentioned. And so as we subscribe to that data, we don't actually build the data. We subscribe to it, and as the data gets refreshes, this tool will automatically refresh as that data becomes. So a lot of the investment is to make sure that the resource we develop here is operational, and we're less resources are consumed toward reviewing the data and collecting that data. That data is already provided to us through a subscription service. But we can look at jurisdictional to jurisdictional flows. This is also interactive. You can mouse over any individual jurisdiction that tells you the total number of trips originating from Montgomery County. And it will put a green map pin in there to show you which jurisdiction you're looking at the origins, and then all the reds indicate the twos. And this indicates the jurisdictional flows originating from Montgomery County. It should come as no surprise that most of the trips that originate in Montgomery County end in Montgomery County. But beyond that, it goes to the District of Columbia, and then to Prince George's County and to Fairfax. So you can look at those relationships for all the different jurisdictions loud in the same way. And then as we get closer into the region, looking at places like the city of Alexandria, you can see that still Alexandria gets the most trips from Alexandria, but there's a lot other jurisdictions that get a significant number of trips. That gives you some insights into the nature of travel and what we have to be planning for, how travel takes place in the region. We can visualize this a little bit differently, looking at the top jurisdictional flows. As I mentioned, any jurisdiction, most trips that begin in a jurisdiction, most of those trips will end in that jurisdiction. So this shows that gross relationship of trips, and it really reflects population more than anything. Fairfax County has the most trips of all the jurisdictions, and most of those trips that originate in Fairfax County end in Fairfax County. When you strip out those trips that begin and end in the same county and look at just the external OD pairs, you can see that the top OD pairs net out a little bit more, and you can see a little bit more insights into the relationship of travel there. And then we can look at the overall trend. External trips by destination over time and by time of day, and you can adjust the criteria that you're using to look at that. So this is one of those, what I call sandbox projects that we developed internally to better figure out how we can interact with the big data that we collect. And so I tasked my colleague Joe to develop this. So right now, this is still hosted internally within COG, but we think it's pretty good and we think it's pretty interesting. So we're excited to go back and finalize this and make it available to everyone on the TRAP page as well. So that is another example for that. And finally, we have, this will be the last one that I show here before I wrap this up a little bit. We have the top 2025 bottlenecks in the region. You can look at where they all are through a regional perspective, looking at a regional map, and you can also drill down and look at them individually. For all of these that I showed you, if you mouse over any of these, it should be able to provide you a little bit more information. There's some data over here on the panel that renders, that describes the nature of that bottleneck. The content changes as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and wrap this up and give you a chance to ask any questions about congestion. But I do want to conclude by really underscoring the context in which we look at congestion. Again, this is through the need to consider that we're a growing region. We always have been a growing region since post-World War II. There have been variations. And those are the variations when they occur. Those are the ones that prompt us all to call our representative. Those are the calls you get. And we do want to respond to those short-term variations and make sure we're able to answer those questions. But when we think about, again, the long-term trajectory of growth in this region, we do forecast that this region will continue to grow. We also understand and recognize that there will be future recessions that will occur. There will be other disruptors that happen along the way. Predicting when those occur is very difficult. We don't attempt to do that. We plan for that trajectory, that long regression line out to the future to better understand where those priority areas might be. And we can plan for that. And the better data that we can collect to help tell that story and the tools that we can develop to tell that story, to communicate to you, hopefully can help you and assist you in answering the questions that you get from your members. So I'll stop there and I'll be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. That was really interesting stuff. I have one quick question about the TRAP page. Are any of those visualizations, is it possible to capture those and make them available through our city's websites or other local websites?
Absolutely. In fact, the TRAP page, I could drill down. I could talk all day about the TRAP as well. But one of the features of it that we really were intentional about is we can feature products that are developed by our partner jurisdictions and host them on the TRAP page or point to those resources, and the other way around too. So we're happy to have any tools that we develop point to your websites as well and make them available too, because some of them although they show all the jurisdictions, you can drill down within one jurisdiction too, so it might be quite helpful. And honestly, from a regional perspective, it's great if everybody's looking at the same thing. So you're looking at a consistent set of data across all jurisdictions, which makes that understanding kind of statistically comparable in some way. So yes, we can do that. That was a long way of saying yes.
Okay. Yeah, the answer I was looking for. All right. Any other questions for Tim?
Yeah, this is Jeff. I've got a question.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Curious whether you've looked at any measures of access, since we only really do transportation to get people to stuff. Have you looked at any accessibility measures?
We have done accessibility analysis in the past. I think certainly that is an important consideration within the context of metropolitan transportation planning. I think this particular briefing was angled a little bit more towards congestion. So I was really focusing on that, but we have done accessibility analysis. We've done that in past scenario analyses that we prepared to inform the board. We also, as these tools like the big data, we hope to be able to do more accessibility analyses as well, and not look at it just so much through the lens of travel time, but also, you know, to jobs. I think that's really been the scope of a lot of our accessibility analysis in the past. But the more data on other features and attributes that we can get, such as accessibility to grocery stores or community services and things like that, you know, needed transportation services, we can certainly do that and do geospatial analysis with these tools. It's that we certainly hope to do more of.
Thanks. And just a quick second question on the travel time reliability. I'm curious about using free flow as the benchmark. I tend to think of reliability more as your ability to predict how long your trip will be. And I don't know that people, you know, for rush hour think that they're predicting their trip is going to be free flow. So even if it's always congested, if it's always taking me 40 minutes, that is pretty reliable. It may not be free flow, but it's reliable. I think it's the variation in time that also causes a problem.
I think you're exactly right. And that same tool, you're able to select from travel time reliability, which was the comparison to free flow, as well as planned time reliability, or PTI. We have both of those available within that same tool to allow the user to kind of see what those sensitivities are between the two differences there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Peterson.
Mr. Peterson?
Mike,
Thank you. I could shout, but rather not. Is this working?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I think this is basically a question about how to understand transportation alternatives in light of all this. It's a big picture question without getting too much in the weeds. But first off, very much appreciate all the information that has been assembled and the ability to manage it so that it's useful and readable, not just for governmental agencies, but for the public also, to try to become more involved and understanding what's going on and how to participate in that. So the commuter survey, and that's done once every 5 years, as I understand it.
Community survey is once every 3 years.
Once every 3, better yet.
Regional travel survey, the all travel is once every 5 years. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to just pick on one thing, but it's representative of the whole suite of transportation alternatives, and the question mark of the strategy. How do we understand this so that going forward we know where to be focused? And there's a bit of timing around the focus. The very long term is we have a regression for long term things that says don't worry about the bumps, but then there's some things that are bump sensitive, right? So my reading, I'm from the city of Fairfax, and so we sit in Fairfax County. I'm not sure the data is quite granular enough to tease out the city of Fairfax on all these things, but I looked at the results of of the commuter survey for biking. And for Fairfax County, because I couldn't find the city in it, it looked like it's 1.5% or something like that of commute takes place by bikes. And if I understand it correctly, that's basically the same number it was 3 years ago, and then 3 years even before that. So I think the reason I'm raising this is there's an interesting question here of looking backwards at these surveys in areas of interest and asking the question, how much has the needle moved? And it doesn't look like it's moved much on bikes. And then the question is, how important are bikes strategically in this big picture going forward? And how do we do a better job of moving the needle? Which I suspect then gets into everything else that you presented in terms of helping to answer that question and formulating an approach, if you will, to deal with it. And I'm guessing a big part of that is focusing on variables like safety, because it's a driver, no pun intended, for the use of bikes. Am I understanding this correctly, that that's kind of how this might be pieced together? Because looking backwards, again, we have a bit of a record on how much the needle's been moving. Looking forward, we know that things are changing and that will dictate some of what we need to do in terms of strategy. But where we haven't moved the needle, we may need to do things just a little bit differently, right? Can you just help? Again, sorry to belabor this, but I'm sitting in a chair where we're trying to make decisions on, where we place our marbles. Right?
Yeah,
So-
Mr. Peterson, let me take that. What we have shown today is been decades of work, and some of them we have started doing within the past 5-6 years. New data collected, new way of presenting the data, data visualization, making it very convenient for public and policymakers alike to use and see the data. But all of this is at the big level. One of the ways it could be used is exactly what you're talking about. And Tim alluded to this in his presentation when he presented the trap page on asset conditions, right? If you are going to be making investments on repaving the roadways, if you are going to be making investments on bridge rehabilitation, you would want to know where are all the bridges, what are the bridge ratings at, and what are the how many miles of pavements you have, what is the pavement rating on all of those. So taking that second and third step into the data is where you were going. And the bicycle and pedestrian, particularly the bike activity, is one example of that. What we haven't done yet, if you go to the state of the commute survey, which we have been doing also for about 20 years now, you can look longitudinally what has happened to biking as a mode of travel. At the regional level, you can say, oh, okay, every 3 years has the trend gone up? The answer is yes. But then to further deep dive into any one jurisdiction to say what has happened within that, in relationship to the total increase in all modes of travel, and relative to all modes of travel, has the biking mode increased or decreased or stay flat, and then cross-mapping that with what infrastructure investments has been made within that jurisdiction to build. The TPB developed the National Capital Trail Network. 50% of the trail network, it's about 1,450 miles. And when complete, you could go from one corner of this region into the other corner of this region without ever getting on the roadway. And you can bike all the way through. That is the vision. And 50% of that is done, more than 53% of that is done. But 47% is not done. So that is one way the TPB had said, if we do this. So your suggestion is a good one of taking this regional data, picking any one topic, whether it is transit ridership, and within transit ridership, whether it's commuter rail or urban rail like metro or bus, looking at each one of them longitudinally and crosswalking them with investments made is where it could go. We haven't gone there yet.
But the data is there to be mined, if you will, to enable.
Yes, yes and no. I'll use your example. You cited the state of the commute survey. I think your observation is valid. The state of the commute survey was designed to be statistically significant at the large jurisdiction level because of costs and time concerns. So within the city of Fairfax, that data set may not give you enough data. And that was the other point Tim made. We've been researching the big data. Big data is excellent. They also, some of them cost quite a bit of money, but a lot of data, real time, you can get it. But the sample size is not so great. So there are some, and that's where we have to think, if we want data, real-time data, particularly longitudinal data, into smaller geographic areas, that is where we will have to focus on our own data gathering effort.
Okay, well, very helpful. I would just say that for instance, we are involved in a program right now of trying to improve bike safety within neighborhoods as opposed to on arterials, et cetera. We have a neighbor ways program, for instance, and it's an interesting question of priorities, whether you focus on the within neighborhood systems or you go into the corridors, or if there's a combination, what it is. So that's the kind of thing that sounds like this could be helpful on with a little bit of pushing, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. Any additional questions? Okay, next up, we have the FY26 Congestion Management Process Technical Report. Ian Newman, you want to take it away?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ian Newman, and I am TPB's Program Manager for Travel Monitoring and Planning Assistance. And today I'm going to be talking with you all about TPB's fiscal year 2026 Congestion Management Process, or CMP, specifically focusing on the CMP Technical Report. So what is a CMP? CMP, Congestion Management Process. This is a mandatory process for addressing congestion management that MPOs, which have an urbanized area within the metro statistical area, so urbanized area within the metro statistical area that that is within the MPO must complete. So the urbanized area must have a population greater than 200,000 residents. And so if that's the case, an MPO is required federally to complete a congestion management process. It is regulated by the FHWA, and there are 8 stipulations within that regulation. And it is a standalone process that is complementary to other program areas within the MPO, specifically the TIP and the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And now what is the technical report? So the CMP technical report that TPB staff has developed is more so better looked at as being a tool for a high to medium level storytelling narrative and data discussion of congestion that is occurring within the TPB region. It is also an explanation of how TPB is compliant federally with the FHWA code for its congestion management process. It is a home for visualizations and analyses of both federally required as well as non-federally required congestion metrics as data, as well as the data discussion going on there. It's also home to a discussion of policy level strategies and targeted actions that address congestion management in the region. And it also contains other congestion management process and travel monitoring products housed within the technical report itself. This slide discusses a bit about what the CMP technical report was in previous cycles. The technical report is a report that is updated every 2 years. And so up till this cycle, the technical report, though the content was quite good, it had some limitations to it. And so specifically here I have listed, it was in a format that often was quite difficult to read and engage with and understand unless you were coming to that report with quite a significant level of understanding of congestion management and traffic analysis data already. The format was consistently in a static 250 plus page PDF. Like I mentioned, a bit difficult to interpret unless you're coming at it with quite a solid understanding of the data beforehand. Engagement was kept more limited, and so that was also an area that TPB staff wished to address. the breakdown of it felt a bit uneven. It focused more so on discussion of the updated data and what that updated data represented, which is a very solid thing to be discussing in this, but it felt a bit as though it was lacking in telling the greater story of congestion in the TPB region, the implications of congestion in the TPB region, and that narrative aspect felt a bit missing from it. And it also had a difficult time with being siloed from other TPB programs and products. And so it really did feel as though it was quite standalone. So from there, TPB staff developed a new vision that is centered around 8 core values. You can see these values listed here on this slide to approach the CMP differently. So for example, to make the CMP, including the CMP technical report, but the CMP also houses other complementary products to go along with it, interactive, first and foremost. Have people be able to interact and play with and use and interpret and engage with this data without having a significant background in traffic monitoring data coming into it. Intuition and usability were also quite important. TPB staff has been saying, this has kind of been our tagline for our Refresh CMP, accessible to a undergraduate student on day one in planning or architecture or engineering or related field, all the way to the most senior official at the FHWA with no one feeling left out or no one feeling condescended to in between. So this is a program and a tool that is designed to be accessible to a large range of audiences. Furthermore, it's story driven. And so part of what was missing, like I had mentioned earlier, is that element of discussing the story and the narrative and the context and implications around congestion management data. Other products can be integrated within it. And so it plays well with other programs and their products, as well as other CMP and travel monitoring suite tools that can be housed within it and showcase its relevance. It's also a living tool, and so data is updated consistently, and we're not waiting for every 2 years to be updating data. And we also value data governance to a great degree. And so we are documenting where this data is coming from. You are able to download the data. You are able to go further into detail and read up on the source of that data, should you please. So here we have the steps that TPB staff took when or after developing this core set of 8 values. Firstly, we identified nationally exemplary congestion management process reports from other MPOs. Big, small, medium, very large. It didn't matter what were other MPOs doing that were exemplary in how they were showcasing congestion management process data and how were they telling the story of their congestion management process that we felt were exemplary. We then contacted a bunch of them, but we were able to score meetings with 3, DVRPC, HGAC, and MARC, to basically share ideas and share our vision and ask about their experiences with their CMPs. And we went to the FHWA and shared our vision for what we have concerning a congestion management process and mentioned that we had met with other MPOs from across the country, and we were in quite a solid amount of alignment. We then built what we're calling the minimally viable product, and then we're able to present to the FHWA internally, present to the FHWA externally, to the RITIS user group, the Mobility Analytics Subcommittee, the TPB Technical Committee, and most recently, from last week, the Community Advisory Committee. And we are continuously taking steps to refine it. So I'm going to move a little bit faster here, just due to the schedule. So the TPB, here's real quick what we built. We built an ArcGIS story map that goes high to medium level in terms of the language that is being used to describe the data and describe the story and implications of congestion in this region. We also developed new methodologies and terminology. We have 9 links for further reading if you choose to go more in detail or more in depth on a particular subject matter area, and you're beyond the high to medium level, you want the in the weeds level. And then we also created interactive data visualizations and identified 5 additional congestion management process product opportunities. With that, I'm going to switch over into a very short demo. We only have 3 stops within this demo of the technical report. And while that's getting pulled up here, I have to do it. All right. So here is the CMP technical report. Like I mentioned, it is an ArcGIS story map. It contains 19 chapters, 88 references, 5 further in-depth link to tools as part of the complementary suite of CMP tools, 12 interactive data visualizations, and we're focusing on 11 federally required and non-federally required congestion-oriented metrics. Again, due to time-wise, I'm going to skip through this pretty fast. As Tim mentioned earlier, in showcasing a lot of the data visualizations that TPB staff has been working on, I'm going to keep that theme consistent, and I'm just going to kind of focus more on the data visualization here. So I'm going to stop over in reliability metrics. And all of the data visualizations are interactive. Users can download the data, they can play with the data, and they are pretty intuitive. I also have tabs over here that showcase this a little bit larger. And so if I were to go to planning time index, for example, or PTI, quick about this visualization that tells you how to read the chart. And then a user can query between looking at all highways or interstates only. Maybe they want to look at the weekdays, and maybe they're interested in the PM peak. The data is going to update in real time. I'm also going to shift our attention to the congestion intensity metrics on the story map. And so if I scroll down here, the Microsoft Power BI dashboard is embedded in the story map, and you can click anywhere to interact with it. I have it open in a separate tab as well, just so that it's a bit larger. But if we're taking a look at, for example, the metric of peak hours of excessive delay, PHED, this is a federally required PBPP metric when you're talking about PHED measured on the urban area and per capita. But TPB staff noticed an opportunity to go a bit further than that and take a look at not only the federally required metric, but to also help showcase more PHED focused metrics to help contextualize the PHED per capita. And so that federally required metric, that's that navy blue line that you see here in the top graph, but you can also see that we're measuring it in aggregate. We're looking at the median TMC segment facility in the TPB region, or I'm sorry, the urbanized area of the metro statistical area. And we're also doing a regional comparison. We're looking at other urban areas from across the United States to see where does the DC, Arlington, DC, Virginia, Maryland urban area PHED per capita measure up. And so you can see here, if I click on Los Angeles, they're at 52.6. DC, we're at 21.9. Lastly, the last stop that I want to showcase to you all today is in the non-recurring congestion chapter. This deals with the causes of congestion. I also have this separated out in a separate tab. And so if a user is interested in looking at causes of congestion in a particular year and a particular day or time frame, or day or time period, they can do so. So for example, I'll go 2023. I'll take a look at interstates only. I'll look at weekdays, and I'll take a look at the AM peak. This graph updates in real time, and you can hover over it and get a better understanding of where that cause of congestion for that cause, what it's doing in terms of vehicle hours of delay and the total delay cost that is felt due to that cause. All right, now I'm going to head back into the presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing this. Thank you. So I want to conclude here with key takeaways before we get to Q&A. I'm going to go through this a little bit faster, but 20 to 25% of congestion in the TPB region can be attributed to recurring congestion on its own. So this is not looking at recurring congestion with another type of congestion. This is just looking at the recurring congestion that is being felt in the TPB region. Non-recurring signal issues and incidents are the greatest non-recurring congestion contributors across the congestion management network and interstates only. The weekdays PM peak is generally less reliable than the weekdays AM peak. So 3 to 7 p.m. generally less reliable during the 6 to 10 a.m. period. And there's moderate to high travel time variability across the TPB region's highways that's being described to us by the buffer index at 0.67. Reliability on average is greater on interstates than that congestion management network, which incorporates interstates, US routes, state routes, parkways, turnpikes, and expressways. The DC metro urban area peak hours of excessive delay per capita is quite similar to the Atlanta, Georgia metro statistical areas, urbanized areas, PHED per capita, lower than Seattle's and higher than Philadelphia's. Across the metrics, we're seeing a pretty stable behavior pre-COVID and then a sharp drop with that metric. Typically, the metrics are indices, and so drops indicate better conditions. And so 2020, we saw a sharp drop, and the metrics have been rebounding to near pre-pandemic levels on almost every metric. Many of the same bottlenecks continue to be found in the top 10 by vehicle hours of delay year over year, though some have been able to get out of that top 10 list and new ones have appeared. And then identification of 4 goals, each with their own priority strategies, are incorporated as part of the strategies to help mitigate and manage congestion in the TPB region. Our next steps, real quickly, we are continuously building on the complementary suite of other CMP products, and we are submitting to the FHWA and the FTA our technical report next month. So with that, I'm happy to take questions here, or you can contact me, and I'd be happy to follow up with you. Thank you.
All right, great. Does anyone in the room have any questions for Ian? All right, anyone online? No hands up? Okay. So we can go on to the next. Ian, I think you're up again, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this presentation, I'm going to be talking about 2 PBPP metrics that are within the CMAQ family, so congestion mitigation and air quality. They are peak hours of excessive delay per capita and the percent of non-SOV or non-single occupant vehicle mode share. For this presentation, I'm going to go quite fast here. We're going to talk about how these 2 PBPP metrics relate to the TPB goals, a quick timeline for target setting by the performance area within the PBPP program. I'll discuss quickly an overview and the requirements of PHED per capita and the percentage of non-SOV mode share. Discuss a bit about the past performance of these measures and how that helped with developing the methodology of future draft targets, and then a discussion of those past versus future draft targets and next steps. On this slide here, you can see on that top bullet, these are the TPB goals for the region, and bolded is affordable and convenient mobility options. These 2 PBPP metrics of peak hours of excessive delay per capita and percentage of non-SOV mode share most closely align with the TPB region providing affordable and convenient mobility options. At the top, you can see how those 2 metrics over there, they are within the affordable and convenient mobility options goal, but they are also feeding into those CMAQ metrics, congestion mitigation and air quality, which TPB staff is working through between May and October. And this slide showcases the other PBPP metrics and the goals that we believe they most closely align to and when they'll be coming up. There's a lot going on this slide, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to focus our attention to the map that you see on the right. So as you can see in dark blue, that is the Washington, Arlington, DC, Virginia, Maryland metro statistical areas, urbanized area. That fits in to the TPB region, but it also extends to the east and to the south into other metropolitan planning organizations' planning areas. And so you can see to the south, it extends into the Fredericksburg, Virginia, MPO's metro planning area. And to the east, it extends into the Baltimore, Maryland, MPO's metro planning area. A quick overview of the performance measures. So PHED per capita, what we're talking about when it comes to this measure is this is the sum of the annual hours of excessive delay. It's not just delay, it's delay that is meeting a specified threshold that's measured during our combined peak travel period windows. So in the AM, 6 to 10 a.m., and the PM, 3 to 7 p.m. Per capita, so we're looking at everyone, the entire urban area population on the national highway system in the Washington, D.C. metro statistical area, urban area. Data is coming from the National Performance Management Research Dataset, or NPMRDS. And for the percentage of non-SOV mode share, this is taking a look at the percent of commuting to work trips taken by transportation modes, including teleworking, that are not single occupant vehicles. And this is coming from the US Census Bureau's ACS 5-year estimates, both looking at urban area as their geography. So here's the data that we have presented here in a nice chart. You can see in the orange, we're looking at, well, this is for PHED per capita, first and foremost. Let me tell you what you're looking at here. This is our observed data in the orange. The previously approved targets are in the blue filled in columns. And then you can see that past performance period that's looking at 2022 through 2025. And then we have in that green box with the checkerboard bars, the future performance period. And so we're looking at 2 and 4 year goals. We're looking at 2027 and we're looking at 2029 for the 2 and 4 year goals respectively. I'll get a little bit into those goals in my next slide or in my forthcoming slides. To talk a little bit about how this metric was performing in the past, you can see that there was a sharp COVID era drop in congestion. I'll go back real quick. 2019, we're at 22.1. 2020, we're at 9.1. So it's quite a sharp drop. There's been year over year recovery, I want to put that in quotation marks, recovery in congestion levels that have indicated a quick return of peak period travel activity. Consistently through 2025, this metric has outperformed its targets, and congestion is expected to persist. But as this metric has been behaving in years past and across other areas, we do believe that though congestion is expected to persist, growth is likely to moderate as the system is going to approach an updated equilibrium, we predict. This slide gets a little bit into the context and the new methodology for this target setting. And so we had previous target setting methodology, which utilized pre-pandemic observed data. And so when this was done last, they were looking at 2016 to 2019 data. Also important to keep in mind that the urban area boundary did change from 2010 to 2020. The new methodology, it is quite complex. It is quite math heavy. And so to keep you from the weeds here, it is something where we have incorporated a linear regression applied to observed data, along with a model adjustment factor and COVID era adjustments as well. So for the future targets, we are seeing a rise from 23.2 to 26.3 in terms of PHED per capita, and that's from 2026 to 2029. And they reflect that moderated trajectory that accounts for similar pre-pandemic rate of change and evolving travel patterns through that 4-year target of 2029. Now we're going to get into non-SOV mode share, and I do apologize for my very fast talking. I'm going to try to keep us as on schedule as I possibly can. Here we have our actual observed data from the ACS 5-year estimates in that orange, previously approved targets in the blue fill, and the future targets in that green box with the navy checkerboard pattern that you can see there. In terms of the past performance, when it comes to non-single occupant vehicle mode share, the observed estimated non-single occupant vehicle mode share increased 8.6 percentage points in 5 years. That's quite a bit. That's 2020 through 2024. We, like PHED per capita, are outperforming the predicted targets in every year, considerably so from 2021 through 2024, which you can see right there. The sustained increase points towards a likely structural shift in commuting patterns, but I do want to mention that this is 5-year estimate data that's coming from the census, and so a particular year that might be skewed is smoothed because we are looking at 5 years worth of data. And the relatively flat past predicted target trend from the past performance period that's looking at 37 to 38% non-SOV mode share reflects an assumption that this metric would revert to pre-COVID conditions. However, based on the observed data that came out, it was inferred that an updated methodology would be necessary to set new targets. A bit about that, the pre-COVID growth from 2015 to 2019, incredibly flat, quite modest. We're looking at 0.1 percentage points per year. This post-COVID growth of 2022 through 2024 has been significantly stronger at about 1.9 percentage points per year. This is a slide that's discussing my new methodology, of which we have scaled growth scenarios that are applied that takes into account COVID era adjustments. Real quick, meaningful behavioral shift post-COVID as 2022 through 2024 acceleration has moved from 44.3 to 48.1%. And the future targets reflect moderated, realistic growth. And next step is in June, we will be coming back to you all with these targets to hopefully be approved. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time. Sorry for going over a little bit and happy to take questions.
All right. So we see a pretty significant shift away from single occupancy vehicle, and yet congestion is continuing to increase.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we expect that to moderate with decreased use of single occupancy vehicle?
So not necessarily. So when it comes to the non-SOV mode share metric, we're looking at commute patterns only. And we're also only looking at 5-year estimates worth of data. And so this has been increasing. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean that the number of trips that are being taken for non-commuting purposes in single occupant vehicles are not decreasing.
Okay.
And also, Mr. Chair, this 5-year period is the COVID and the recovery period. So as we know, transit had gone down significantly, and as had most travel because teleworking was at its peak. Now with the federal return to office and with the similar approaches with the other sector, you're beginning to see more of that.
Okay. Are there any additional questions? All right. Well, thank you for all that information. Slightly overwhelming, but it's all good.
There was one question in the chat. It said, has teleworking been included in the metrics? Was teleworking included in the metrics?
Yes, it was.
teleworking would be considered a non-SOV commuting method. Right?
That includes teleworking.
Okay. All right, we have one last item. It's a notice item. Sarah Brown, you want to take it away?
Good afternoon, Chair Harris and members of the TPB. My name is Sarah Brown, and I'm a senior transportation planner at the TPB. Today, I'm going to provide a notice of a major amendment to the fiscal year 26 to 29 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, to update project and funding information for Northern Virginia. This item will be brought back to the board next month for approval. While we did recently approve the TPB's entire TIP just a few months ago, the Virginia Department of Transportation has requested this amendment to revise a substantial portion of its section of the TIP in order to align with its draft fiscal year 27 to 30 statewide Transportation Improvement Program, or STIP. Please note that the Virginia STIP years are not the same as the TPB's TIP, and the TPB's TIP will not be officially approved in Virginia until the Virginia STIP is approved. There is only 1 year of overlap, the year 2026, between these two documents. So essentially, Virginia is adding all the information for the years 2027 to 2029 into the TPB's TIP. Due to the number of changes and the magnitude of funding involved, this amendment is being brought to the full TPB board rather than the steering committee. This allows for additional time and opportunity for the board oversight, including a 30-day public comment period, which will close on Saturday, June 13th. VDOT is proposing updates to 140 existing TIP records, along with the addition of 5 new projects to the TIP. All projects are included in the air quality conformity analysis for Visualize 2050 and fiscal year 26 to 29 TIP. And all projects are coming from either VDOT SIP, the NVTA regional plans, or other local transportation plans where they have been prioritized. Virginia's portion of the TIP currently totals approximately $2.6 billion. Following this amendment, or following the approval of this amendment, the total is expected to increase to approximately $7 billion, representing a net increase of $4.4 billion in funding over the next 4 years of the TIP. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, does anyone have any questions?
VDOT's Michelle Shapshad is here. Would you like to add anything?
I would just like to say that Ms. Brown gave a very good overview of that process. This is a relatively routine process that if you've been around a couple of years, you know, we go through this routinely every couple of years to align the two plans, align the TIP and the STIP. We are updating this as mentioned, just to include some of the projects for those physical years due to the overlap. So we appreciate your consideration of this this month for public notice and then action at your June meeting. There is a good outline that was provided in your packet, so we appreciate your consideration and your action next month. If you have specific questions, we'd be happy to entertain them.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Does anyone out in the room or in virtual land have any questions for us? All right. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Michelle. That is the last item. That concludes our meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. Hope to see you all there. Meeting is adjourned.